questioners back on board. And as you know,
Sure.
our goal is to record all these meetings and release them so that everyone has a chance to see how all the candidates respond to each of the questions. So just
Sure.
to reintroduce myself, I'm Merv Turner. I'm with OneNJ7, a grassroots all-volunteer organization. We're committed to strengthening democracy, engaging voters, and flipping NJ7 blue. And these meetings are a key part of that effort, giving voters the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates who want to represent us in Congress. And as you know, Greg, we will be inviting all of the candidates to an in-person forum in November after Election Day. So to those on the call or watching the recording, if you're not already signed up for our newsletter, I encourage you to do so at www.onenj7.org. As you remember from the last time, over the past few weeks, members of our community have submitted a wide range of thoughtful questions, and we've reviewed and condensed these into 9 core questions that will be asked of each candidate, and the same questions in the same format. Questions will be asked by attendees who volunteered to help facilitate the conversation. So we ask that you try to keep both the questions and answers focused and respectful of time.
Sure.
We want to make the most of this opportunity to learn from and about the candidates. The meeting's being recorded, and the full set of recordings will be made available when all the candidates' meetings have concluded. So for those on the line, please keep yourself on mute unless you're asking a question. And before we begin the questions, we'd like to ask Greg Vartan and give him a few minutes to introduce himself and tell us a bit why he's running for Congress. So Greg, floor's yours.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Merv. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you to everyone that's here, taking some time out of their summer day to listen to me. And so I'll start with the introduction of myself and why I'm running. I'm running because this is my home. I love it here, and I think that we deserve so much better than Tom King Jr. So I'll give you a little bit on the personal, the professional, and then the political. So personally, starting off, born and raised in Summit, graduated from Summit High School, class of 2011, went to Lycoming College in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, where I met my beautiful wife, Megan. I was the president of the student body. Megan was the vice president of the student body. We were basically best friends all through college until senior year. When we started dating. So moved back to Summit 6 months or so after graduation. Professionally, I started off working very, very young. I was about 13 when I became an umpire for Summit Junior Baseball, which is Summit's version of the Little League. Worked as a busboy, a lifeguard, a swim instructor, and then after college moved into medical device sales. Did work as director of business development for a startup that dealt in the dental space and HR and benefits space also until the pandemic came and we had to basically remake the business model. So we pivoted and were able to then sell the business. And now I'm I lead the EMS and government business for the Northeast for a company called Ansel Healthcare. We manufacture gloves and hazmat suits and other protective sorts of equipment. So I wore our products the entire time I was working in the field as a volunteer EMT, which I started in high school. Again, born and raised in Summit, basically to believe if you have the opportunity to be helpful, you probably should. So that led me to joining the first aid squad in high school. I was an active volunteer, became crew chief of the Sunday night crew, became a trustee of the first aid squad, and served for about 12 years. It's also that spirit, those lessons also led me to run for office shortly after graduating from college. So as an EMT, you're trained basically if you're looking around, not really sure who's going to do this job that you know needs to get done. That's you. That's your job, right? So I ran for the first time in 2016 for our city council. I lost by 9 votes out of 5,000. So that was devastating, of course. But I decided I would pick myself up and dust myself off and run again. So I became a madman, knocked on every door at least twice. The next time around that I ran in 2018, won by quite a lot. Was reelected in 2021. Became our youngest council president, and I am very proud of our achievements, from the pandemic response to building a new firehouse, investing in full-day kindergarten and 100% of the requests from our police department, and holding taxes flat. And actually, they went down one year that we were in office as well. So I think that I'm the best person to take on Tom Kean Jr. That's a little bit about me, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of the questions.
Well, thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
And of course, you've already covered much of my first question, which is what in your background and experience would make you suited to represent NJ7 in Congress, but why do you think you would be a better candidate than the other Democrats who've thrown their hat into the ring?
Sure, absolutely. So first of all, I'm the only candidate in the race that's actually been here in the district for more than a couple of years. I'm also the only candidate in the race who's actually been elected before. So I think that, first of all, it's tough to ask people for their vote. It's tough to build trust simply by showing up and saying, hey, I'm running for Congress now. I think deep rooted service to the community is how you build that trust and prove leadership. That's first. I think also once we do get to the general election, I'm basically the opposite of Tom Kean Jr. in almost every way that you could possibly imagine. You love him to death. My father was not governor of New Jersey. I have student loans. We rent here. It would be virtually impossible for us to try to buy a home now here in the district. So I think the problems that everyday working people in the district are facing are exactly the problems that Megan and I are facing on a day-to-day basis. The price of rent, groceries, gas, healthcare, all of this stuff really, really matters to us. And I think that having a representative that really understands that, because I'm living it also, is something that will be very, very valuable to the district. Also, in my relatively short period of time in elected office, I think I've accomplished quite a bit, whereas Tom Kean Jr. has spent almost his whole life in elected office and has accomplished very little. And so I think those are, and of course, my experience in delivering for people what I think is a slightly left of center version of government that gets things done, works for everybody. That's I think, not to be too cliche, a model for the rest of the district.
Great. Thank you, Greg.
Sure.
And I see Marietta Carter just joined us in a perfect moment. Marietta, you are down for our next question for Greg.
Hi, Marietta.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm assuming I'm asking question one. This is the first question.
It's number 2.
Okay, all right. I was on a little late, so I thought that might be the case. So Greg, what would your top priorities be as member of Congress, and how could you effectively pursue them as a first-time representative? What committees would you seek to serve on?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think, first of all, I'll use a medical term from my time on the first aid squad, which is basically triage, which to me means we have to address the things that this administration is doing that are hurting people, or even worse, killing people, disappearing them off the streets, and the things that are illegal. So when I'm talking to people, I'm out talking to hundreds of people in this campaign, and about half of them are saying to me they're not paying attention to the news because of their mental health. They need to preserve their ability to go on with their lives. And then there's the other half of people, maybe not the whole half, but there's certainly a big group of people who about every 35, 40 minutes put me in a new group chat with some new outrageous, disgusting thing that this administration has done or that the guy in the White House has said. And I think for all of us, for us to be able to move forward, but also to resist effectively, I do think we need to put some of that outrageous, disgusting stuff aside And I do think we need to focus in on the stuff that is hurting people. And, you know, to me, certainly that's everything that was passed in this new budget bill. We basically want to do exactly the opposite of all of that, right? And I think that to me that it starts there, and then from there, once we get the administration under control, do the triage, stop the bleeding, however we want to phrase that, then I think that we can start to have a real conversation around affordability in this district. And I think that means investing in education, in infrastructure, in healthcare, in green energy. And to me, that is going to take probably a little bit of time, but it's obviously something that we have to get to work on. And it's something that voters want to hear from us, right? Voters don't just want to hear opposition all the time. Voters want to hear what is our plan in order to do that. And again, I think it's almost exactly the opposite of everything that's in that bill. So for me, you know, I think you have to say, you're obligated to say, right, you want to be on the big committees, you know, Ways and Means, Appropriations, Oversight. You know, I think that oversight especially is one of the places where this Congress has basically just said, forget about it. We're not gonna do our constitutional responsibility to hold this administration accountable for anything. And to me, that's one of the biggest places where you would have to get started. But also, you know, having been elected before locally, you know, a lot of people don't even know the House of Representatives has a small business committee. You know, I'd be happy to serve on a small business committee. You know, I think first term congressman, you know, you're going to have to accept what I think basically you're given by way of committee assignments. But also, you know, this is the quintessential swing district in the country. So I do think under a new speaker, you know, I will be able to wrangle hopefully at least one good committee assignment.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Marietta. Yeah.
Sure.
And our next questioner is Joan Peters. Joan?
Hi, and I'm doing.
Hi, Joan.
Hi, good to see you.
You too.
Doing number 3, correct?
Yep.
Okay, and as you know, District 7 is a district with 20,000 more registered Republicans than Democrats. The past 2 candidates have been unsuccessful, and much of it, to me, seems to be based on Tom Kaine's name recognition. Thank you. What's your plan for winning the election in New Jersey 07, and what would you do differently?
Well, yeah. So I think that's, you know, part of the reason why this election has started so early, why so many you know have announced so early is the recognition that it's about getting our name out there primarily, right? I think a lot of people vote for this guy because they actually think that he's his father, right? And they don't actually know. And so you know, so for me, you know, I think it's I would run this race essentially how I've run every other race before, which is you get out there and you start talking to people. And those people for me now have been largely in 3 different buckets of folks. So you've got your big donors in one bucket. In the next bucket, I think you've got basically the party leadership. So to me, that means, you know, county and local chairs. It also means electeds around the district. I have a good relationship with a lot of people who are elected at the local level throughout the district as well. And then the third bucket of people is the activists, the advocacy groups, and then of course, actual voters, right? And so to me, any successful campaign is going to push on those levers or tip those buckets. You know, you have to find the balance, I think, between how much time you're spending on each of those things. But I think by far and away, the most important one is going to be the talking to voters piece of it. Because when you ask people what they care about, they'll tell you. You know, they'll be honest and they'll tell you. And I think that that's been how I've been successful in winning local elections so far, not just with Democratic support, but with independent and Republican support as well. And you know, Summit is again, at the risk of being cliche, sort of a model for the rest of the district in that it's very, very, very close. The registration levels are very close between Democrats, Republicans, and unaffiliateds in Summit. And you can't do it just with Democratic support alone. You have to do it with unaffiliated and Republican support as well. And I think when I'm saying go and talk to voters, it's unrealistic to think we'll knock every single door in the 95 towns, 96 towns in the district, right? But what I mean by that is go to where people are. Democrats won the election in 2024 with people who get their news from cable TV and from newspapers. I think we obviously have a recognition that there is new media and we have to be on social media and we have to be going on podcasts. And, you know, I do this locally. There's a guy who I went to high school with who has a podcast that's about, he's got, I don't know, 30 something listeners, but that's a big deal. You know, when you've lost an election by 9 votes, you know, the opportunity to be talking and 30 people are listening is a big deal to me. So I will do any of that. I'll go and I'll talk to anybody. And that's part of the plan.
Thanks,
Thank
Greg.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joan. Marietta, I got you down again. You got a twofer tonight. Question number 4. If you can unmute.
All right, I have to get out of full screen to get back to my questions. I didn't realize I had 2 for tonight.
Yeah, you're lucky.
Oh, lucky me.
Yeah.
Jackpot.
I feel lucky too, Mary.
All right, Greg. So we're question number 4 now?
Yep.
Okay. As an individual representative, what would you do to protect New Jersey's immigrants from being arrested, detained, imprisoned, deported without due process or criminal convictions?
Yeah. So to me, this is an incredibly important one because this is a very specific example, I think, of where we're really right on the edge of fascism here, right? And I think we're probably over the edge. And this is an administration that's proven that they're willing to basically just do whatever they want. And Congress, we've certainly seen our Republican members of Congress not willing to do anything. So I would certainly look to our representatives in New Jersey that would be my Democratic colleagues in the House as a good model for how to start and resist and stand up for our residents here. Because if it can happen to, if they're not going to check, right, if there's not going to be due process, it can happen to anybody. And so it should be concerning to everyone, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent. This should be something that's very, very concerning to you. And I do think that our local Congress people from New Jersey have done a pretty good job of highlighting what's going on and getting out there and performing their oversight responsibilities in person, going to Delaney Hall, for example, and seeing what's going on and demanding accountability from the administration. I think that Representative Menendez, Representative McIver, these are folks who have literally put themselves out there to get in between our residents and people who would do them harm. And I think that that's a tremendous model.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marietta. And Dan Murphy, you're up with question number 5.
Hi, Dan.
Yes, hello, Greg. We all know this is one of the key competitive races in the country, and therefore it's going to be very expensive. And we're in a very expensive media market and all. So what sources, well, first of all, what are the sources of campaign funds that you've already raised? What organizations, committees, individuals, what do you plan or hope to tap into? And then kind of related question, how much will you be pursuing and relying on endorsements and backing from the county Democratic committees around the state?
Thank you, Dan. Those are both, I think, very important questions. So it'll be it's not news. I'm not breaking the news to anybody now that the reports have all been released that I have raised the least of my primary voters or of my primary opponents so far. I've raised the least money for this primary campaign. I think that time and time again, we've seen that the candidate that raises the most money doesn't always necessarily win the primary. And I think that it's incredibly important to raise money to be able to compete in this media market and to be able to pay for the campaign materials that you need to pay for. However, I think that nothing is more important than genuine connection with the people that you want to serve. And it's very, very easy in a campaign to spend too much time pursuing big donors, too much time pursuing corporate PAC money instead of spending time genuinely making a connection with the primary voters. And a big part of the reason that I'm running is because Megan and I are basically priced out of this district, of this housing market. We simply refuse to be priced out of the campaign also. So we're going to continue to be talking to donors. We'll be calling big donors like everybody is supposed to do, according to the prescription that's passed down, from about how these sorts of campaigns are supposed to work. But we can't just follow the old formula of how campaigns are supposed to work. We've seen the last 2 times in this district, it hasn't worked. We've seen all around the country, it hasn't worked. We outraised Trump at the national level. It didn't work, right? And so for me, genuine connection to the voters is always going to be priority number 1. On the second question, the county political organizations, some of them in New Jersey, it's no secret, some of them in New Jersey operate much better and in a much more democratic, small d democratic way than others. However, I would definitely be pursuing the support of any group of Democrats that I can get in the primary. And so happy to go and answer questions, happy to screen, what many of these county political organizations and then local political organizations are. We can sort of villainize the establishment, but I think basically what they are is a bunch of people in these communities who are really dedicated to making sure that Democrats get elected. And, there are some shady dealings that go on in New Jersey. There's no secret there with the political organizations. But I think most of the time, these are folks who are really dedicated to making sure Democrats get elected. And I don't think we want to tell anybody that we're not interested in their support.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Dan.
Yep.
Terry Tauber, you're up.
Hi, Terry.
Hey, Greg. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. So this kind of dovetails with what you were just talking about. How would you present yourself to voters across the district, from the urban areas to its wealthy suburbs to its rural towns? What policies and messages do you believe could bring these disparate communities together to support your candidacy?
Mm-hmm. So I think, again, I'll go to my local experience, which is that you have to, even in a place like Summit, you have to represent a very, very diverse group of people. There's no question that the district is extremely diverse in every way that you can imagine, from like you've just described. And so for me, I think that a broad message needs to be that we need to return our government to a place where we start with a basic respect for the Constitution. I think from there, we need to go to the next level up, which is basically we should live in the same fact universe as one another. And then from there, I think we can have, and we should have, reasonable policy disagreements with other people. But if we can't get to that through those first steps, right? If you think everything the administration is doing is fine, if you think that what the Congress is allowing to happen is totally fine and that's okay, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for us to agree on much of any, right? But I think that once we get through those two things, then I think, and most people really do genuinely believe that we should have this respect for the Constitution and that we should share common facts and that we can have reasonable disagreements with people that are neighbors and then move forward. And I think some of those policy interests that are going to be broadly applicable across the district are affordability. We've heard that from everybody, whether you're lower income or higher income. It's people are getting priced out of this state, and it's very difficult for people to be able to afford to live here, whether you're just starting a family and trying to buy a house, whether you're sort of in between your kids and your parents, or whether you're trying to retire here in this district. It's becoming incredibly difficult for people to be able to do that. So addressing those affordability concerns is going to be one thing that I think is broadly applicable across the district. I also think that it's going to be about, as a general philosophy of government, for me, it always starts with health and safety. And so another big area would be healthcare. And I think there's 70,000 people in this district that are going to have their Medicaid potentially taken away. And to me, that's a huge galvanizing, unifying issue that shouldn't be happening. And I think we have to do a better job of communicating to people when people say, oh no, I'm okay, I'm on NJ family care, right? That's Medicaid, right? We have to make sure people understand that. And we have to make sure that, the hospitals in this district, like Phillipsburg Medical Center, like Overlook Medical Center, these are places that are extremely reliant upon Medicaid funding to be able to do what they do. And those are places and services that are going to be extremely under threat. I also think that there's a lot of this district, and this is again under the health and safety category, there's a lot of this district that doesn't even get good cell phone service. And so if you're having a medical emergency in some of the western parts of the district, you may not even be able to get through to 911. And that's terrifying, but it's a reality for a lot of people in this district. And then from there, even if you do get through, you may not get an ambulance coming for a very long time. And that's because across the entire country, EMS is in crisis, and we don't have enough people in the country that are willing to do this job. And we don't have enough supplies, and we don't have enough training going on. And so for me, there's a bunch of these bills. One of them was actually sponsored by Andy Kim when he was in the House. There's other legislation that's in the Senate now, and it would basically create a national EMS corps so that we can start to treat EMS workers like truly a part of the emergency response infrastructure, an equally important part as fire and police officers in the emergency response infrastructure. And I think we need to be able to build up those jobs as good, solid jobs where you can get access to join a union and you can make sure that you have a good pension from those jobs as well. So those are some of the policy areas I think most people can hopefully start to get on board with.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank
you. The next question falls to me again.
Welcome back.
Thank you. What I call the big bad bill has passed. And as you pointed out, there are people who stand to lose Medicaid, SNAP, and other benefits due to these budget cuts. What can we do now to help protect these people, these individuals?
Yeah, I think one of the bigger things that we've done a bad job at communicating about it. And I think part of that is that a lot of people don't understand this phases in over the course of many years. For example, some of the more damaging stuff doesn't really start until after the midterm election next year. So if we let them get away with it, if we let them get away with sort of the propaganda that, they're cutting out this waste, fraud, and abuse, and they're not actually cutting and kicking people off of it, then we've done a terrible disservice to the people that we want to serve. We need to explain what's going to happen, and we need to explain when it's going to happen so that we can elect a new Congress, we can take back the majority, and we can stop it from happening, hopefully before some of those things do happen. And so for me now, supporting organizations like OneNJ7 that are actually trying to get information out to people, the local organizations that are trying to get that information out to people, going and knocking on doors, talking about this now, getting on social media, making videos. This is the stuff that we have to do now in order to, first of all, resist effectively. Secondly, make sure people understand what's coming. And then third, outline a reason for people why we need to make a change.
Thank you, Greg.
You.
I'd like to hand it over to BC Connolly for our 7th question.
Hi, BC.
Hey, good to see you again, Greg.
You too.
Listen, if if all the good things happen and you are elected next year and Congress and Democrats take control of Congress, what types of actions would you support to reverse some of these draconian policies? Would they include impeachment and physical removal of some of Trump's appointees?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So that's a short, quick yes. I think
Okay.
I think that people who are in office, regardless of your party, right? This is one of the things that when you swear an oath to the Constitution of the United States, you have to it is the biggest responsibility you can possibly take on. And I think that it's so clear to me looking at it that there are numerous people in this administration who are not upholding their oath, who are actively doing things that are illegal, and they need to be held accountable for those things. So yes, I'm in favor of investigation immediately, impeachment, and ultimately removal if warranted.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And our last question in the formal questioning is falls to Ellie Saiter. Ellie, you can unmute
Greg.
yourself. Yeah.
Oh, am I muted?
No, you're good now. We can
Oh,
hear
okay.
you.
Sorry
Yes.
about
Hi,
that.
Ellie.
No.
The last question will be, would you push for improving US relations with NATO, the EU, and other allies, despite the Trump administration's disdain for those alliances?
Yeah, absolutely. The idea of America first isolationism is to me nonsense. I think that there when you can make a bomb someplace and bring it to the United States, that means that the world should be our concern. And the United States should be returned to a point where we are a leader in international cooperation. And I think that we, because of the leadership of our government now, have been made into a joke, essentially, on the international stage. And to me, restoring the role of the United States as a leader, it needs to be another top priority, again, for the safety and security of the American people primarily, but also for the good of the rest of the world as well. I would be, if elected, I'd be the only Armenian in Congress, and so I'm Armenian on my dad's side, so I'd be the only Armenian in Congress. And there are a number of really important issues in the world, including one of which is including Azerbaijan's aggression with Armenia, and the forceful removal of people from Artsakh. And to me, that would have warranted a level of response from the administration similar to that of the invasion of Ukraine. And I think that we need to support Ukraine. We need to support Armenia. We need to support our democratic allies around the world when they're threatened by authoritarian government and aggressive action. And to me, that is another example.
Thank you, Greg. That's all of our formal questions. And
Okay.
if someone from your campaign wants to drop your website into the chat, that would be
Oh, yeah.
great. We'll make sure people have that.
We could definitely do that. I think Danielle's here.
Danielle is on the line. Yeah, Danielle, do you want to
Okay.
do that? And
Yes.
we can.
It's just gregvartan.com. It's just my name.
Okay. Okay. And we can ask our team here if they have any other questions that they'd like to ask Greg. And if you do, I suggest you use the hand raise function in which falls under reactions on your bottom bar under Zoom. So just looking to see if there's any hands raised. Looks like we're good. I think we can give Greg some time back. Greg, we really appreciate you coming on again, and we appreciate that you're giving us your time, not just once but twice. So
I feel very lucky. I do actually feel very lucky. I get the chance to talk again with this great group of people. Thank you.
Okay. Wait a minute. Terry Tauber has her hand raised. Terry, yeah.
Terry.
I just wanted to give you a chance, Greg, to tell us how it's been going at the doors and things like what kind of reactions you've been getting and what you've been doing so
Yeah.
far.
Oh yeah, well that's a great question. So I am out knocking on lots of doors for primarily for local candidates, but also for assembly candidates. We have a really good opportunity to hopefully flip LD21. I know we have really good ambitious candidates in LD23. And of course, we absolutely must elect Mikey Sherrill to be governor. So for me, I'm hearing a bunch of things. First of all, that we have, like always, there's a little bit of disunity within the Democratic Party. And there are people who are still upset from the primary when one of their other 5 candidates did not win the nomination. And to me, what I keep talking to people about is we really, as a party, have to stop thinking about voting like we're getting married to this candidate, right? We're not getting married to this candidate. We have to try to think about it more like we're getting on a plane and there's 2 empty seats and we have to sit next to somebody. We're sitting next to one person or we're sitting next to another person. And there's almost always going to be a really clear choice there about who would be better. It's not going to be a perfect person, but we're going to have to sit next to that person. And voting generally is a lot like we're getting ourselves closer to the kind of country we want to have. Absolutely no candidate is going to match up perfectly with the things that we believe. So I think we do as a party have time, but we also as a party really have to just be united and come together, because otherwise we're going to have no protection in the governor's mansion from the Trump administration. As a matter of fact, we're going to have Jack Ciattarelli he got a call from Trump and he showed up in Bedminster in 30 minutes, right? Like we know that would not be the right thing. What we've also been hearing is, and I'm sure you guys, the organizers of OneNJ7 have heard this too. Like, hey, one election at a time, right? Like we have a primary for NJ7 in June of next year. We have an election now this November between now and then. So I'm desperately trying to make sure that that my campaign does not become a sideshow for the important things that the important races in the governor's race, the assembly, and the local candidate races that we have this year. So a lot of doors, I'm not even talking about myself. I'm talking about the local candidates and the assembly candidates, and then there's no time to even mention that I'm running for Congress. But I do try to tell people, and I do think it's important that we are getting our names out there. But my hope is that all of us, and I have said this to my other candidates, my other primary opponents as well, when I see them in person, I really hope that we can all be on board with making sure we get as many Democrats elected this year as possible.
But
That's
so
great.
even though you're not talking about yourself and your campaign, I assume you're learning a lot about what people are caring about and what the issues are,
Oh
which
yeah.
will help you as
Oh
you
yeah.
go
Absolutely.
forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. No question.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm going to call on Kathleen Dolan, who raised her hand, and we haven't heard from Kathleen this evening. So go ahead, Kathleen.
Hi,
Hi,
Merv.
Councilwoman.
Hi, Greg. After our most recent 100-year weather event a week ago, it seems that the impact of climate change on our district is getting more and more concerning. What do you think of FEMA's role in supporting infrastructure to combat these effects, and who is best positioned to address it at the local level?
Yeah. So municipal government is, as you know, right? Municipal government is almost completely reliant upon FEMA when these kinds of weather events happen that are huge. And I think to me, Tom Kane Jr., what was the worst? Obviously, I think the condolences to everyone in Plainfield who, after those 2 people passed away in Plainfield. And I'm super thankful for the first responders that were working around the clock to make sure there was no further loss of life or damage to property. To me, I think that the biggest problem with Tom Kane's time in office, one of the biggest problems is that he just doesn't stand up to the administration when it's so easy to. And this one is an example of when it's so easy to. Like, he said nothing when Trump said we're going to dismantle FEMA. He said nothing when he said we're going to dismantle the National Weather Service. And he knows, I know him enough to tell you that he definitely knows. And he's just too spineless to say, actually, we really need FEMA, right? Like, it's just that one of the easiest things he could have done to then show independents in the district. Hey, look, I'm not totally on board, right? Like, FEMA is important. And one of the other very important things that people, I think, don't really know is that there's 15 community projects that were listed on Kane's website this last year for fiscal 25 in the federal budget, that were, some of which were flood mitigation projects, some of which were infrastructure improvements to police stations and communications infrastructure for emergency responders. And Kane was fine with all of those things, more than $2.5 million worth of community funded projects. He was fine with them being stripped out of the budget. And of course, he went and took pictures in some of these communities. He went and took pictures in Summit with us here last year on a project that was going to provide sidewalks, flood mitigation on one of the roads that gets really flooded. And that's terrible. And now what he said was basically, okay, we're going to just change the website. You can go to Kane's website. They're there now, except now it says fiscal 26. So he's going to ask for them all again for next year as if it didn't matter. And it does matter. And all these municipalities had to reapply. And some of these municipalities, if they already had the project underway, are going to have to fund them now at the local level. And that doesn't help anybody. That doesn't, it's not a 1-for-1 dollar savings there, because now your municipality is going to have to go further into debt. They're going to be left holding the bag on some of those more important projects. So I think FEMA's role is incredibly important, obviously in the immediate aftermath, but also federal funding for those kinds of projects prevents municipalities from having to handle them themselves. And I think that that's incredibly important. And it's yet another thing that Tom Kane Jr. has just kind of abdicated responsibility for.
Thank you. Marietta, you had your hand raised earlier. Do you still have a question? No.
Sorry, I was on a little rant there.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay, Greg. You're entitled to rant.
Hey, thanks.
Believe me, we all rant these days.
Yeah.
So I'm going to call the meeting to a close. I want to again to thank you, Greg, and I want to thank all our questioners for taking their time. And Greg, we wish you the very best of luck with your campaign.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.